Hello, my name is Zahida and Jeanette. I'm a senior lawyer in Government Legal Department in the Employment Group, and I'm also the Deputy Chair of the GLD Disability and Wellbeing Network and the Co-Chair of the Cross Civil Service Reach Senior Disability Network. I'm today virtually joined by Jeanette Rosenberg, who is the Head of Special Casework Licensing Unit at Department of International Trade, and is also the Chair of Disability Network and Vice Chair of the Civil Service Disability Network. This video is one of a series of 6 videos being produced by the Reach Senior Disability Network on empowering disabled people into senior grades. This video will be shared with the Cross Civil Service Senior Disability Network and across civil service wide generally. It's hoped that this video will benefit people who are disabled and wanting to progress and develop their careers and move into senior grades. So shortly I'll be asking Jeanette various questions about her career journey and her career path and development. And I'll also be asking questions about disability generally. Jeanette, thank you for joining us today. If you're ready, shall we begin?
Okay.
Fabulous. So my first question is, could you tell me briefly about your current job and how your career has brought you to where you are currently at?
Okay, well, I work in the Export Control Joint Unit in DIT, Department for International Trade, and I've been in my current role since July 2011. At that point, I was looking for a job that I didn't have to travel all over the place. I'd previously been doing a job where I used to travel an awful lot, and it was time for me to be a little bit more desk-based. So this suited me very well and continues to do so. I've been a grade 7 for quite a while now. Oh, can we pause this? Sorry, I'm not the only person working in my home today. I've been grade 7 since 2001, so this isn't my first job as a grade 7. I'm actually quite happy being a grade 7. It allows me to fit in a whole load of other things around the edges of my job, chairing my disability network, being involved with the Civil Service Disability Network, being a secondary carer for my parents, and a whole heap of busy things around the edges of the working day. Now let me think. I joined the civil service a very long time ago. The grey hair, don't let everybody, no, seriously, I joined the civil service back in May 1987. So that is rather a long time ago. I do find myself working now with colleagues who weren't born when I started work, which is quite an interesting challenge, mostly for me. I think they think I'm part of the furniture. I joined as an EO and fairly rapidly got promotion to HEO about 3 years after joining. After that, I did a couple of jobs, 3 jobs I think, as an HEO, and then went from HEO to grade 7 back in 2001. So happy being where I am, really.
Fabulous, good stuff. And in terms of when you started the civil service, I'm actually not far behind from you, so if that's any reassurance.
That's a relief.
So you mentioned earlier on that you are the chair of your network and the vice chair of the Cross Civil Service Disability Network.
Yep.
Can you tell me why you became interested in disability rights and what motivates you to champion the rights of civil servants with disabilities?
Certainly. Well, when I joined the civil service, I didn't have any disabilities. That seems quite a curious thing to say now, given that I've acquired quite a few. And I'd always had asthma, but I have now quite severe asthma. And it started to impact me in my day-to-day living and my work, etc. And the HR team back in, I don't even know when, because I've been chair of a disability network now since 2003, so that's quite a long time. But back a long time ago, someone said, why don't you join a disability network? And I guess one thing led to another, and I ended up becoming the chair of the network and started working in those days on the old disability equality duty and things like that when it came in. I started getting more and more involved in all things disability because I felt it was quite important to give a voice to people who have disabilities and long-term health conditions and who don't otherwise have the voice to be able to share the wider needs and experiences of disabled staff, to get the adjustments that we need to be our best that we can be and in the workplace. So kind of things happen quite organically or naturally from there. I think I got involved not only in the disability network, but some of the more representational activity, supporting, mentoring individuals as well, both people who have disabilities and long-term health conditions and those who don't. I suppose it's all part of the way that I manage. I've always been in the operational delivery area in work, so I do have quite large teams. I've always had large teams for as long as I can remember being at work, and working in the world of disability seems like a natural part of that. As time has gone on, as well as acquiring ever more serious asthma, I'm type 2 diabetic and I inject insulin, which comes with one or two of its other challenges. It arises out of having severe asthma and having taken a lot of steroid medication. I also have a lymphatic disorder called lymphedema, and basically all of my disabilities collide with my immune system. So actually working at home right now, as we all are, following lockdown, has been an absolute blessing for me. It means that it puts everybody else on that same level playing field as me. We're all working at home, so I haven't got to lug into work, and walking for me is a bit of a thing. I walk with a rollator, so a seat on wheels, so it makes quite a fashion statement when you walk into a room, because there are not too many people, certainly in my department, who have one of those. So when people say, oh yeah, Jeanette, and they say, who's that? And then they say, oh yeah, it's the woman who's got the rollator, and I've got a nice pink bicycle bell on it as well, because I can, why not?
Absolutely, why not?
Yeah.
So you mentioned the asthma, the diabetes and the lymphedema. So with regards to these disabilities, when you meet new people who may not know about these conditions and how it affects you, how do you broach the subject? Are you very upfront, or do you wait for it to crop up naturally?
Mostly it crops up quite naturally, mostly because next to me, people will usually find my rollator. It's not up here with me now. I'm working upstairs in my home and it's downstairs. But around the house, I walk with a walking stick, which has fallen over the other side of the room. I'll leave it down there. I don't need to prove that. I have these fashion accessories that mean that people are automatically aware that there's something. They might not know what it is. They also see the size of me and sometimes make their own value judgments. There's usually an inhaler on my desk, so I guess one of those is a bit of a giveaway. I'm quite upfront about disability. I have lots of conversations with people. Often people come and talk to me because they're not certain how to have that conversation with a line manager about a disability or a long-term health condition, because mostly we all acquire disabilities as we go through our working life, and it is quite a tough topic to raise with individuals. So particularly to raise with a line manager, because you're not always certain what they're going to say. So I do lots of coaching conversations with people, because it's important that we can speak with confidence about what we need to be our best, because nobody comes to work not to be. Sometimes that's difficult for people. I talk about it almost as coming out as having a disability, because disability is one of the protected characteristics in the Equality Act, but it's also one that tends to change or can change as you go through your working life. And that's usually quite different to most of the other protected characteristics. And sometimes it takes some considerable getting used to, because there are stigmas attached to being less than perfect, as people used to call it, old medical model. I like to talk to people about the social model of disability, where we're valued for what we are able to do and what we can do. And often that includes a different way of approaching doing something, problem solving it, doing things differently in a different way, perhaps than our non-disabled colleagues. And that can be helpful in the workplace, certainly, as well as in life.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think a lot of what you've said has resonated with me. And I remember reading an article that somebody had written on mental health, and when I was reading the comments, there was a lot of comments about, you know, how people had regretted coming out with their disability, and because they had, you know, adverse consequences when they did. So it's really unfortunate, and I think it's really important. I really like the fact that you are doing these coaching conversations, because, you know, if you've had a disability for a very long time, it might be difficult. It might be different for you in terms of broaching conversations. But, you know, if you develop a disability maybe overnight, as can be, it can be very difficult to have broach those conversations and how to have those conversations. So yeah, that's really useful. So thank you for sharing that. My next question is a bit long-winded, so I'm just going to have a look at my notes whilst I read the question. The question is, with regards to your disability, do you consider yourself to be at a disadvantage, facing problems that need to be overcome and in need of adjustments, or do you see yourself as being more skilled or advantaged because of the nature of your condition and or the coping strategies you've developed? If it's the latter, what is your superpower?
Superpowers, really important. The answer is, like all other people who have a disability or a long-term health condition, we have superpowers, because we can deliver things where perhaps people who don't have a disability couldn't. We plan around, we're prepared for every eventuality. We've pre-thought about all the things that might need to be taken into account so that we can be our best and manage around our disabilities and health conditions. That actually it's a superpower, because we are that much more prepared. We're planning, we're organized, we can look at doing things in a different way to make the best out of how we are and what we do. And actually that brings diversity of ideas and of thoughts and of ways of doing things, which I think makes it definitely a superpower.
Yeah, I think what you said really resonates, and sort of being in the disability sphere, it's something that I hear people say a lot. I have a friend who has got memory retention issues, and she has lots of coping mechanisms in place, coping strategies, you know, lists, reminders, and all of this. And she says she's set it up so well that when she tells people that actually, you know, I do have difficulty remembering things, I've got cognitive impairment, they don't believe her because she's been utilising this superpower so well that, you know, it's actually masked the problem. So it's really interesting what you say about having that superpower.
I think so, yeah. It's also about encouraging colleagues to develop or share your superpower. Undoubtedly, where we interact with others in the workplace, when they are making adjustments or mitigating for needing to work with us differently. So before we were all working at home, when I was having a day working at home and my colleagues needed to interact with me, they were working in a different way through working with me. And actually it helped them recognize that it was possible to do our job role from working at home equally as easily as they could do it from in the office, and that actually freed up or gave the ability for more people to be able to work from home and manage around, I don't know, parent care, pet care, looking after kids, going to the dentist, getting the washing machine mended, and all of that comes out of, well, I was the first, I started working from home and others hadn't. So yeah.
You set the trend, Jeanette, and others are following. I mean, I think this the current circumstances have definitely demonstrated
video's just frozen
that we can work more differently. Yeah. We can work. Is that better?
That's better. It's
okay, I was just saying now. That this current circumstances have definitely shown us that we can work differently, we can work more agile, and we can continue to deliver the business needs and the business model. So hopefully a lot of the good things that have come out of COVID-19 won't get lost post-lockdown.
So. Yeah.
Definitely. So before I go on to ask you some career advice type of questions, I was going to ask you some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
So are you ready, Jeanette?
I hope so.
Okay. First one, best piece of advice you have received?
So at work, when I was a new starter, my then SEO, when I was a shiny new EO back in the day, always said, make sure you stay around in a job long enough to have some of your chickens come home to roost. It's so that you see the outcome of what you have set in place. That's really important.
Oh, interesting. And the very most important question, iPhone or Android?
Well, I've got one of each sitting here. The iPhone.
You can't sit on the fence, Jeanette. You can't sit on the fence with this one.
The iPhone is the work phone and the Android is the home one. And I think I prefer the Android.
Oh, Jeanette, it was going so well up until that point. What's your favourite movie?
My favourite movie? Oh, I do love a rom-com. Something that you can have a good sob at the end.
Oh, me too.
I'm a big softie.
Yeah, describe yourself as a teenager in 3 words.
Ooh, difficult one. I was a bit of a loner, didn't have that many friends, didn't have any disabilities or long-term health conditions, but I don't know. I seem to spend most of my time as a teenager doing homework, I think, back in the day.
Excellent. That's good. Best gift you have ever received?
Best gift? The love of my family, definitely.
Oh, that's
Family's
lovely.
really important to me.
Yeah, definitely. That's lovely. I hope they'll see this video as well.
You never know, maybe.
Yeah. Any pets, Jeanette?
Not at the moment. I've always kept goldfish right from when I was a little girl, and we had a long-lived goldfish who went to the big goldfish bowl in the sky shortly before lockdown, and we planned to get a new one, but all the fish shops have been, apart from fish and chip shops, that is, all the fish shops have been closed. So that's a plan for when once I can get out and about again.
Oh, that's nice. Nice
aquarium downstairs.
Yeah, lovely. That would be nice. Can you name a book that you've read that positively shaped you?
Oh, good question. Well, I do a lot of family history things outside of work, both researching my own family quite extensively and also helping and doing some paid for research for other people. So I guess it would probably have to be a family history book. As to which, I don't know. I'm in my genealogy cave, absolutely surrounded by books. So I don't think I could name one that's been particularly influential. Probably lots of them.
Yeah, by the looks of it as well. If you could have 3 people over for dinner, who would they be?
I think it has to be a hypothetical 3 people, because I have done so much research on lots of my ancestors, I would love to have a hypothetical dinner with a number of my key ancestors, and finding out about some of them has been really interesting and has unlocked the doors to lots of friendships all around the world with other family history researchers and cousins, distant, sort of near and far, really.
Oh, wow. That sounds really interesting. I think I should touch base with you on that at some point.
Okay.
Main course or dessert?
It's funny, I used to be a dessert person, I still am, but I think mostly main course.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I come from long lines of butchers on both sides of my family, so has to be the main course, I think.
Good answer. If you had a superpower, what would it be?
Well, it's disability, isn't it, as discussed?
Good answer. So that's it for the rapid fire. We're going to move on to some career-related questions. So how would you go about applying for a job? Any hints or tips on the written application or the interview that you can share with our members?
I think the most important thing in applying for jobs is making sure that you're applying for a job that you really want. It's important to go for jobs or to go for promotion, not just because it's there, but because you really want that job and you could make a difference in doing it. I think that's the first and most important thing. And I think it's all about the preparation that you do, preparation for the application, preparation in writing the application, making every word count and argue for its place if it's 250 words on a competence or a skill. Make it that those 250 words are really important and that they say the right thing. Draft it wearing somebody else's glasses, not your own. By that I mean make sure you're not putting too many acronyms in, make sure you're drafting it using the language of the vacancy you're applying for. Preparing for the interview, thinking about what questions or what skills you might be asked about. Understanding that recruiting line managers and panels, what they're looking for in recruiting a job, what they want to hear from you in terms of the language, understanding that vocabulary that you need. So it's all about the preparation.
That's really useful. I was just making some notes there. You know, and the points that I picked up were, you know, making sure you say the right thing, because there is a right thing to put in applications, and it's important to capture that. And I think the other tip that you've given, which I thought was really useful, is wearing somebody else's glasses and, you know, stepping into somebody else's shoes. So that somebody else being, you know, either the person is going to sift, either the person is going to interview you, either somebody's going to sit on the panel. And it's important to see, you know, try to put yourself in their position and think how they're going to perceive me, how they're going to view me. When they read this application, what are they going to think about me?
That's right.
It's good stuff there. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. What are your top 3 career tips, either generally or specific to somebody with a disability?
Oh, let's have a think. Give yourself the space to be nice to yourself. I suppose somebody else might think, well, why is she saying that? And the answer is because if you have a disability or a long-term health condition, you need to plan around it, and you need to not overcommit yourself or make yourself ill. We all owe it to ourselves to keep ourselves healthy. So in terms of career, making sure that I have the adjustments I need is important. So same for everybody else, making sure you have that space if it's mental health conditions for your talking therapies, or other conditions if you need, like I do. I go to manual lymphatic drainage to help my lymphedema. I know that I need to give myself one day at least so that I can work remotely, so I can plan around my appointments. So I suppose it's all of that really, what I would think about.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of what you've said does resonate with me, and resonates with the work that I do in the disability field. Such an important point that you've said there is to be nice to yourself. It's so understated, yet so important. And I think this is something that lots of people with disabilities are guilty of not doing. Then they're not being nice to themselves, and it is important that they are. And I think what the point that you've made about applications is about planning ahead. Again, that's a really important point. And of course, taking into account, when you plan ahead, not just it's going to take me X amount of time to put the application form together or to answer the interview, but also, factoring into account that I may have to pop out for appointments, I may have to do this, I may have to get some treatment, or, sometimes you don't know how the nature of your condition may be so, maybe unstable that you don't know how it's going to impact you. So
That's
really
right.
do plan for those eventualities as much as you can. So no, really good points there. My next question is about setbacks. Have you had any setbacks, and how do you come back from it? And how do you generally deal with setbacks?
I think I'm generally quite a resilient person. So I think things through in advance often and before they've happened. So I've planned for things. So I don't tend to see things perhaps as setbacks per se. Probably when I was younger, I'd have said, I want to go for the senior civil service. But actually, that wasn't, as I said earlier, it's not because it's there, it's because it's right. For me, I can make that much more difference doing what I'm doing now without needing to do what I do at a more senior level. I'm content to stay at this grade because it allows me to have and to act or to get involved with lots of different things across the civil service that I would not be able to do where I am in a more senior position than I am at the moment. So I suppose I look at things like that, really.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's really useful. Can you tell us about one particular civil service initiative for disabled staff that has either helped you to progress your career or you think would make an impact on others? Now, this could be any civil service initiative or any initiative that your networks have introduced.
Okay, well, obviously I've been involved with the Civil Service Disability Network for a very long time. And one of the things that CSDN has is an involvement with an organisation called Purple Space, which is run by Kate Nash. Kate is a networkologist and she helps to grow and develop disabled employee networks, and reinforcing the role of disabled employee networks is really important. So that's one key initiative, but also Purple Space has been involved with bursaries for people on the positive action pathway, and it actually amounts to to mentoring as well as bursaries for learning and development. And I think mentoring is another thing that's really important. I know we were talking a little bit earlier about mentoring for disabled civil servants, and sometimes you just have to be mentored by somebody else who gets disability and long-term ill health because of the greater understanding that that person, they don't have to have the same disability as you, but an implicit understanding of disability and the impact on an individual in their working life is phenomenally important, and you can't undervalue that, really. I do quite a lot of mentoring, mostly through the civil service learning website, but also within my own department. And as well as being a mentor, you actually grow friendships, and I believe mentors actually get as much out of the mentoring relationship as the person who is being mentored at the time. It's very much a two-way street, and I've been involved as a mentor for upwards of 20 years, I guess now, so definitely I recommend it.
Oh, that's really impressive. And I think, you know, you described the getting it as a phenomenal thing, and it's absolutely phenomenal. And like you say, the mentor does not have to have the same condition, but just understands that because of your condition, your circumstances might be different, or you may have limitations, you may need adjustments, and all of that.
Yeah.
And it's almost as if it normalizes it. It makes it feel it's okay, and I think that's really important. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. Who would you say is your biggest supporter, and who is your role model?
Ooh, my biggest supporter, that's got to be my husband. I couldn't do lots of what I do without him. My best friend, my soulmate, the one who I shout at and who shouts at me. Yeah, definitely him. In terms of role model, now there's a good question. I'm not sure. I don't think I've got one.
No, that's fine. It's fine. This is something intersectional. My next question is going to be on intersectionality, and this is something that I feel quite passionately about.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, to a large extent, you know, a lot of our networks do operate in silo, and it's seldom that it's one characteristic that's operating to create a disadvantage for people. You know, sometimes it is, but sometimes, as often is the case, it's the combination of a number of characteristics. You know, for example, you can have a disability, you can move from BAME, you can be a female, you can have caring responsibilities, all of those things.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't know which one exerts more of an influence and sometimes it varies. Some days it may vary, some periods in your life, things may change. What would be your advice to someone who is affected by a number of disadvantages?
Okay, I won't call it a number of disadvantages. I mean, I obviously get where intersectionality is coming from. I'm involved in the faith networks in DIT and lead the Jewish staff network. And there are a number of different intersections across diversity and inclusion network. Nobody really just fits into one protected characteristic, you know, whether someone is from a BAME background, if they are a Christian, if they're Jewish, if they're Muslim, or from another faith. There are so many different intersections, you know, and disability is another, and LGBT another. And I would never want to build a hierarchy of oppression for anybody. But I do find that I work quite a lot with all of the other different diversity and inclusion networks, certainly within my home department. Yeah, and I know CSDN is involved across the civil service with you know, the other protected characteristic diversity and inclusion networks as well.
Thank you. My final question, you'll be pleased to hear. What is the most important thing that you would want to leave with us today?
I think the most important thing is nobody needs to do everything by themselves. You can't hold up the world. Share with others. Join networks for as many or as few protected characteristic diversity and inclusion groups as you want. You will find support, you will find friendship, camaraderie, and in these days, particularly when we're all working alone, okay, with families perhaps, for some of us at home, but while we're working, we don't have that support that we would otherwise have from within the office if we were working with colleagues around us all day. And actually having other groups with whom we can network and people who we can share within the office is really important. It helps us to deliver. So remember to talk to your colleagues because loneliness is really a big thing. particularly for people working remotely?
I really liked what you said there. You can't hold up the world, and I've made a note of that. It's something I'm going to keep having to remind myself about. And I think also what you said about having your support and having and joining networks by default. I mean, I work in GLD, so by default, I meet a lot of colleagues in GLD. But since joining the Disability Network, I have to say my network of people that I've met has really increased and has really broadened. Yeah. And it's really nice to meet people from, you know, different walks of life, different backgrounds, you know, different characteristics, different sort of stages in their life. And that has only been possible because of these networks. So that's really, really good advice for members. And I'm sure they will take that on board. Jeanette, thank you so much for your time today. You've been an absolute star. You've shared some really interesting stuff, and I think a lot of the stuff, without doubt, has resonated with me. And I'm sure the members who listen to this video will find a lot of what you've said inspiring and quite thought-provoking. And I'm sure a lot of the tips that you've shared on the application and the interview stages, that's going to help, you know, not just people hoping to go further into their career progression, but also with junior colleagues as well. You know, the suggestions you gave, I think, will be equally applicable to everyone. So thank you so much for sharing that. Personal thank you from me, but also a big thank you from the Reach Senior Disability Network for taking part in this interview today. I know it's not easy because, you know, everyone is extremely snowed under. Yeah. And it's also not very easy doing these things by video. So thank you so much for doing it. You've been an absolute sport.
It's all right. Happy to do that.
Thank you. Bye.